In 2026, which location should you be investing in? Queensland or Victoria? And we're going to break down every single part of these two states and decide which one is better to actually invest in. And it may not be the answer that you are expecting, but I'm going to go through all the facts, figures, and nuances that you should be considering when deciding between these two locations. And just before I do jump into the video, guys, if you guys haven't already, make sure you jump into the private community. It's literally $35 a month. And we talk about these things on a daily basis, different suburbs, different states, different nuances, different properties. Every single day, there's personalized mentorship one-to-one. There's deal vetting. There's access to suburb watch list and even more information. It is an absolute steal when you're getting property investment education for such a fraction of the cost of what the normal industry charges. So make sure you jump into the private community, guys. You will not regret it. Let's get back into the video. Now, there's a couple of factors that I want to talk about between Queensland and Victoria. And the first one I want to start off with is rental market pressure / rental growth / yield. Now, for those of you who don't know, generally what we find is that in Melbourne and Victoria in general, the rental pressure in terms of growth, in terms of vacancy, and in terms of yield tends to be worse than what we find in Queensland. In Queensland, we see that the rental pressure is stronger on an yearly basis, with about 7% growth in Brisbane in houses and only about 2.4 across houses in Melbourne. So there is a very stark contrast between rental growth over these two states. And you may ask me, why is this important? This is important because when we're talking about investing in property, we want rental growth to happen so that we can have our properties neutrally or positively geared, and the rental growth will help upkeep the maintenance of these properties in terms of its expenses. So it's important to have rental pressure in a market. And even though a lot of BAs and investors are currently buying in Victoria, in Melbourne, and regional Victoria, the rental pressure is not as strong as what we find in Queensland and right across Brisbane CBD and other parts of regional Queensland. In fact, when we start to break this down by some of the suburbs, you can have a look at the differences in rental pressure. For example, I have the postcode of Bundaberg, and you can go check this yourself in your own spare time as well if you want to. You can see over the past 12 months, we've had about 10% growth. And having this level of strong rental growth is not only a good sign in terms of rental upkeep and being able to get your property positively geared, it is also attractive to investors because we need good yields. This is one example in Bundaberg. And then when we look at a location that is very popular for investors at the moment, which is Melton West, for example, and you have a look at the rental growth in that suburb, it's negative 2.2% over the past 12 months. Now, there is a multitude of reasons for this. One is obviously the abundant amount of rental supply they have, and now we have more investors buying into the area, which means more rental properties. Hence, when you have too much supply and not enough demand for rentals, then you don't get strong rental growth. It's as simple as that. Supply and demand economics, right? And look, you may say these are cherry-picked examples, and yeah, there's some of them are. For example, when you look at Rockhampton, we also have decent rental growth. We've had about 12% over the past 12 months, and a location in Victoria which has done pretty well in terms of rental growth is Shepparton, right? We've had about 5% growth over the past 12 months. So it's still not as strong as Queensland, but generally speaking, the rental pressure in Victoria is stronger. And to further this point, when you start to look at Melbourne as a state in terms of rental growth, if you have a look at Sydenham, for example, in Victoria, or Taylor's Hill, for example, you can see that the rental growth is about 3%. So not very strong. You can also have a look at Pakenham. When we look at Pakenham, only 1.8% growth over the past 12 months. So not very strong in terms of rental pressure in these areas. And what this means is that when you come to try raise your rents in 12 months, when you want to get a better yield for your property, you're not going to be able to get that because you can't raise the rents because there's not enough rental pressure, there's too much supply, and more properties are vacant. And that's your first point of consideration between Queensland and Victoria, right? The rental market pressure heavily favors Queensland, and that is important to have as an investor. But there are more things to consider. But just before I get into that, if you guys don't know, I do also have a property course. It has over 60 plus videos, 8 in-depth modules going through different points and aspects of property investing from the very basic to the very advanced parts of it. It's literally $349. It's a fraction of the cost of what most BAs and other property gurus charge, but it teaches you so much invaluable knowledge, and you also do get 1 month access to the private community. So you save almost $35 straight off the bat, and there is an entire education curriculum breakdown of each and every single video, so you know exactly what you are purchasing before you buy it, right? So you know what you're getting, guys. Go have a look. It takes 2 seconds to have a read through, and you're getting so much value out of it, guys, right? And if you do have any questions, leave it in the comments. Reach out to me privately, send me an email, and I can help you guys out. Now, the next point of comparison between Queensland and Victoria that I do want to talk about is a bit of a twofold situation. It's regarding insurance rates and council rates. Now, what we find across Queensland is that majority of insurance rates and council rates are much higher than what we find in Victoria, right? We find that the rates within Queensland, when it comes to water rates, when it comes to council rates, when it comes to insurance from home and building insurances, it is very, very high. In fact, you can take this property in Townsville here on 12 Berry Court, Kerwin, in Queensland, 4817. It's a very nice home, nothing really wrong with it. But when you start to look at the property insurance quotes, this is one I've done on Amy, right? You can still go and do this on other insurance quotes, but this one came out to be almost $4,800. I've seen them around $3,000. I've seen them around $5,000. And in the odd scenario where an insurance company doesn't deem it risky at all, it'll come around $2,000, $2,500, right? But this is generally what you're going to find with Queensland right across many of the locations in Cairns, in Townsville, in Bundaberg, in Gladstone, etc., right? They're right across the state. They have much higher insurance premiums. And this is due to a number of reasons. When you look at Queensland, a lot of the locations, the large regional hubs like Mackay, like Cairns, like Townsville, they fall under a flood zone. A large majority of properties will fall under a flood zone. And that is why you get the much higher insurance rates, right? You can have a look at Mackay. The same thing also happens with Townsville, where a lot of the properties that you can see right throughout the regional location fall under a flood zone. And even the ones further away from the main river also do fall under that flood zone. So if you do choose to invest into regional Queensland, you will have to accept that majority of the locations are under risk of major flooding, that you do have to account for the higher insurance rates and factor that into your overall expenses. It is super important you do your numbers and you do your due diligence before purchasing the asset and not regret it later. And we saw this in an example in February 2025 where Townsville and other regional locations in North Queensland experienced severe flooding. So you do need to get insurance because the risk is just way too high otherwise. So that is a factor that you have to consider. Now, this is not to say that Victoria or regional locations in Victoria do not flood, because some do. For example, Shepparton is known to flood and had a major flooding in 2022. So that's important to know. Benalla floods, Warrangrata has flood zones, and other parts of regional Victoria do flood. But the insurance rates, as long as they're out of the flood zone, tend to be on the much lower side, while most properties up in far north Queensland tend to have higher insurance premiums in my experience. So that is something to be aware of. And then to add to insult to injury, when you look at Queensland, a lot of the locations, they will go from Townsville to Bundaberg to Cairns to Gladstone, have higher council rates and water rates in the region of $3,000 to $4,000, while as in Victoria, you generally find them to be around $2,000 or so. So cheaper, not by much, but it is still a point of consideration. And just before everyone jumps on me, and yes, Victoria does have land tax, which is a significant cost, around $1,500 for a $500,000 asset and around $2,500 for an asset more expensive than that and onwards, right? So that is also need to be factored into your calculations. And for those of you who don't know about your land tax obligations in Victoria, you go have a read. Everything is publicly available on their websites. They have a calculator as well, so you can work out your exact cost of land tax before you even purchase your property. There should be no excuses for knowing your costs. So that's another important consideration between the states of Queensland and Victoria that you should know about before investing into those locations. Know about the insurance rates, know about the council rates, and know about the land tax and higher stamp duty in Victoria. Important to know. Now, the next point I want to talk about is more from a macroeconomic lens and less micro level analysis between the states. And from a macro perspective, Victoria has some of the worst conditions that we need to be talking about as as investors, right? Victoria has some of the highest state gross debt per capita and has some of the highest debt due to uncontrolled spending, and is going to continue to get worse year on year before they can somehow put a lid on it, and even if it can be stopped, right? This is something that we need to talk about, because when you have an economy of such deep debt, that takes away opportunities from having proper businesses, from putting money in the right places and R&D and promoting businesses and giving back to the economy. It is a real problem. Whereas Queensland debt is a lot better compared to Victoria. And here's the other thing we need to talk about from a macro perspective about Victoria is the fact that the Premier in Victoria is a Labor Premier. Now, I don't want to get too political because, quite honestly, I don't really care which way you lean. However, generally speaking, when we're talking about investing in property, Labor never has been really favorable to investing policies. And when Victoria is in such deep debt, the Labor Premier tends to use the landlords as a beating stick, in the sense that we usually get taxed a lot heavier through stamp duty, through land tax, through fire and emergency services levy, and much, much more, right? That could possibly come down the track. Now, Victoria is at a turning point in 2026. We have the state elections in 2026, which means that there is a possibility that we will have a Liberal Premier in office. And if that was to happen, it's probably the best thing that could happen as an investor for that state, right? Because if Labor was in power, I would be very conservative about my approach to Victorian investing, because they do see landlords as a bit of a beating stick, quite frankly. And so this is a really important distinction to make between Victoria and Queensland. And let's be honest, Victoria has some of the strongest renters policies out there, where there is a lot more of the laws favored towards renters in Victoria, taking the power away from landlords. It's not really 50-50, it's more 70-30 the renters' way. And hence that has inherent risks when holding an investment asset in Victoria. While as Queensland tends to be a lot more reasonable in terms of taxes, in terms of land tax, in terms of rented to landlord power. And that is an important distinction to make apart from the overall gross debt of Queensland and Victoria. Again, this is more at the macro level. At the end of the day, when supply and demand metrics come into factor, as long as the demand outweighs the supply, we will see capital growth happen. However, this is an important distinction to make in Victoria, and I'll tell you why later in the video. The next point I want to talk about is the recent growth that's been happening right across Victoria and Brisbane. When we look at Melbourne historically over the past 3 years or so, or I wouldn't say 3 years anymore, but the past 3 years, it has gone through quite a bit of a stagnant phase, not only in the capital city, but regionally as well. Melbourne did really stagnate between the 2022 period to around 2024, early 2025, and now we've really seen Victoria start to boom in prices in a second wind market. Now, the important term is second wind. That means the growth will be sharper and shorter. And this is important to understand because the yields in Melbourne have always been relatively low. And now, after all the price growth has happened, the yields are going to compress further, which makes it harder as an investor to accept that as a purchase. In a very similar fashion, Brisbane yields have compressed significantly, but their growth over the past 6 to 7 years has completely gone unchecked. It has gone through extraordinarily strong growth that is due to immigration, that is due to a shortage in new houses, and that has allowed Brisbane prices to continue to grow even though it has doubled and tripled in some areas, which is just absolutely insane. And even in 2026, I do think Brisbane still as a market has more to run through, just simply because there is not enough houses and there is still such very strong demand. Now, that doesn't mean it's a smart investment, because you have to bring it back down to your overall cash flow analysis and your strategy. And now I'm going to show you two examples of sort of properties, and then you're going to have to make a call from there onwards. Now, I just wanted to bring these two properties up once again. You have this one in Melton West that is sold for $632,000. And when you start to look at the rental return of a property like this in Melton West, if I can type that is, and we press search, a 3x2 is roughly going for for 450, 450, 435, 410. So for generous sakes, I'm going to put the Melton West property, $632,000 at 450 rent. You're getting about 3.7% yield. So an extremely poor yield for a property like this, something I would never consider personally. And with stamp duty, you have higher stamp duty, which means it's going to be around $35,000. And if we take a look at this property, 12 Berry Court in Kerwin, 4x2, and you can also look at the recent rental return of a property like this, 4x2, 620, 580, that was a 4x1, 520 for a 3x1. So around 620 odd for a property that's a 4x2, I would say. I'm not too sure why this is so much more cheaper, maybe a bad pocket, but around 620, right? So we put this property as well for 620, 687, stamp duty $10,000 cheaper, even though it's roughly the same price. At a 20% deposit, I've put the home insurance and council rates pretty high. It's conservative, but it's important to know there is no land tax. You're negative about 15K before taxes and about negative 10K after your tax return, assuming you bought in your personal name, which gives you a rental yield of about 4.69%. So cash flow wise, not too bad. And when you look at Victoria or Melton West specifically in this example, it's about negative 17,000 and negative 10,000 after tax. Now I've put the home insurance, council rates and land tax in, so roughly a decent amount of expenses, right? But the difference between these two properties is about $2,000 or so. And after tax, it's almost negligible, the difference. It's very, very small, right? And this is a really, really important distinction to make, because right now between Victoria and Queensland, and because Victoria has grown in 2025, the yields have compressed, which means that the overall net yields between Victoria and Queensland are very, very similar. Now, I am generalizing here, and it's important to know that I am generalizing, because when you look at Queensland, there are markets that are going to yield you extraordinarily results to in some select locations like Cairns, Bundaberg, Mackay. And when you look at Victoria, there is still some very strong locations providing strong growth like Warrnambool, like Shepparton, like Traralgon, Latrobe area. And so it comes down to the specific market itself as well. And so to really sum this all up, where does the market sit? Queensland, strong rental growth, strong market pressure, very good supply and demand metrics. It is still going to have growth into 2026, and it's likely more in its second wind as well, you can almost say. Victoria, it has started its resurgence after a 3-year period of no growth. It has decent yields in some select markets. Melbourne, very poor yields overall now, has cheaper home insurance and cheaper council rates, but has a land tax and has higher stamp duty. It's a second wind market. The growth is going to be shorter and sharper, and the initial value proposition that was there in Victoria in 2025 is no longer there in 2026. You are now riding the wave with the rest of the other investors as well. You are no longer an early adopter. Remember that. And so ultimately, this comes down to personal strategy. If you already have 1 or 2 assets in Victoria, I will not and would not recommend buying more. But if you have bought a couple in Queensland already and you are not exposed to Victoria, you could look at select Victorian markets to invest into to get decent growth over the next 12 to 18 months. And after that, I expect the market to stagnate more or less once again. So I really hope this video has helped you break down the differences and the nuances between Queensland and Victoria. And I could probably keep going for the next hour regarding these two states, but no one will watch the video to that end. So if you have come to the end of this video, please go subscribe to the private community. It is an absolute no-brainer if you are trying to buy and select the right markets to invest into. I will help you. The other community members will help you. We have a heap of resources to assist you. You will not regret it. Till next time, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and have a good 2026 ahead.